Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk about such a relevant topic, of course, in conversation that there, like I said, for many of you that were just kind of hopping on, there is so many, there's so many resources for answers and solutions. And unfortunately, right now, only about half of them are accurate. So I really want to do my best to be a reliable resource for you and kind of talk about some of the most relevant questions. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tiffany Cross, and I'm the owner of Dedicated Credit Repair. This is our 15th year in business here in the Valley, and we are registered with the Department of Justice, which is not only an honor, but something that we take very seriously so that we can be a reliable and ethical credit repair solution for not only you, but your clients. So I wanted to go through just some COVID-19 specific credit concerns and questions, and then just open it up at the end, or even during, if you have questions that are relevant that you think that everyone would benefit from, I'd love to be a solution for you. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I have a slideshow here. We can start attacking each question individually. Okay, so the first question that we're receiving is, what are you seeing buyers do that's negatively impacting their credit rating? So, you know, the first thing that we're seeing are that people are, number one, they're just assuming that their mortgages are going to be forgiven. They're assuming that because the governor came on the news and was saying that there are programs in place, that they're automatically opted in for those programs. So first and foremost, we know, or most of us know, especially in our industry, that that's not really the case. Really what needs to happen proactively is that each client needs to contact their loan servicer individually to find out what their particular solution will be. Bank of America, for example, has multiple different loan programs and solutions available for their clients. And quite frankly, just because your neighbor may have Bank of America and you have Bank of America, it doesn't mean you're going to be offered the same solution. The other thing we're noticing is that clients that are not in need of forbearance are just either not paying, or they're going into forbearance just hoping that it's going to be the right thing to do. And I'll let you know right now that if a consumer was late prior to March of 2020, in most cases, they're not going to be approved for the loan forbearance program without severe hardship and documentation that COVID-19 specifically caused the reason for the forbearance. So that's the first thing that I would recommend. Notifying your clients right away to get on the phone. The hold times right now are anywhere from 2 to 3 hours, unfortunately, to get a hold of a servicer. But keep in mind that a lot of the loan programs, the options available are going to be a little limited for people. For example, if you have a loan that is serviced by B of A, but it's not their loan, they may not have the same options available. So for example, I've got some clients that are being told automatically that the only option available to them is a 90-day modification. So at the 90-day mark, they're going to actually have to pay the entire balloon payment plus the 4th month of mortgage. So that's a big disaster waiting to happen for many people. Others are being offered the opportunity to have the mortgage payments added to the end of the loan. And then worst case scenario, modifications, loan modifications are being offered. So first and foremost, number one, we got to not assume that, that we're going to be automatically able to skip payment. So that's the first thing that I wanted to address in the first slide. The second one, let's see if I can read it. How will mortgage deferred payments impact a consumer's credit rating? So this is a huge one. So unfortunately, the CARES Act is a little bit confusing. And what we're being told that's going to happen is that automatically, if you are in a forbearance program, there should be no lates reporting on a credit profile. That is how it's supposed to be. And unfortunately, we're seeing already that that's not happening. So a couple things to be alert to. Tracy Garamone actually called me right before this meeting. Thank you, Tracy. And just kind of gave me some information based on her company and some of the things that they're seeing already. What they're telling people is that they may not put a 30-day late, depending on the program that you're opting in for. They may not report you 30 days late, but there's no promise that the credit bureaus themselves are not going to basically reduce your FICO score based on a lack of payment history. So keep in mind, 35% of your FICO score is calculated by frequent and on-time monthly payments. So when there are no payments being reported, although there won't be late payments, just the idea that you may not have a payment reported in and of itself could negatively impact the scores. So that's something to be very, very careful about. The other thing that we're seeing, again, that I kind of alluded to in the first question, is that if somebody is in a forbearance scenario, let's say they contact their mortgage servicer, they're given the opportunity to go into a forbearance, the words forbearance appearing on the credit report in and of itself, we're seeing those words bringing the scores down. So although they're not putting 30-day lates on the credit report, we are seeing that the word forbearance, just reporting in and of itself, is going to have a hardship or a FICO consequence on the consumer's credit report. That's super frustrating. And of course, the CARES Act should be a workaround for that. And that's something that we are really aggressively staying ahead of for our clients, to be able to dispute those words off the credit report, because the CARES Act should provide provision for that. So there is a solution, but we're already seeing the difference between what's supposed to be happening and what's actually happening. We already have hard evidence of it. So once again, so very similar to 2010, when consumers were in loan modifications that the banks agreed upon, sometimes just making that modified loan payment, even though it was made on time, still negatively impacted the scores and oftentimes put the consumer into a foreclosure status. Now, even if the client never went through with the foreclosure, the words foreclosure proceeding began were reported on credit reports. And we're starting to see similar trends already. So that's something to be very, very cautious about. Go to the next one. Okay. How will a lack of rental payment negatively impact a consumer's credit rating? So in the rental industry or a rental market, so far so good on that. So what we're seeing is, unless there is some sort of broken contract lease reported, if there is a eviction or things like that, that's very separate from this. Ordinarily, we're not seeing any sort of damage at all, at least temporarily. The reality is that we're not seeing that negatively impacting renters at all. So that's good news. Obviously, same thing goes for renters. We need to make certain that they're contacting proactively. I know that we had several property managers on a conference call the other day, and basically said you absolutely have contractual obligation as a renter to be in contact with your leasing company to make certain that you've provided documentation to show that you fall in basically qualifying for that CARES Act relief. So there's a very difference in that. So we want to look for broken leases appearing on credit reports. And even then, you guys, if you have a client that we see they have some sort of eviction, especially if they were in the military, I need to know that, because we can definitely help facilitate implementing the CARES Act on their credit report resolution. It's a good question to ask. Okay, sorry to go back and forth here, but third one, how are the increased FICO requirements for most lenders impacting buyers? So if there's any good news in any of this, I will tell you, lots and lots of lenders locally are stating that many loan programs that were available a month prior are no longer available for buyers. That's not the case for everybody. So sometimes we're hearing that because one lender can't do it doesn't mean another cannot. But the common thread right now that we are hearing and seeing is that there's many clients that were pre-qualified last month or the month previously. They're no longer qualified due to certain loan programs not being available and FICO score increases being required. So the majority of my lenders are saying that anywhere from 620 to 670 is kind of the new normal for most mainstream programs. That's not bad news. I will tell you that the FICO score slides extremely generously from 580 to 680. So it will take a little bit of fine tuning. We can definitely help a buyer increase the FICO score. Even 60, 70 points can be done within a short period of time, maybe 30 to 60 days. So don't lose hope in that. If you're hearing that the FICO score requirements are a big deal, obviously it's an increase. It does make it a little bit more difficult, but certainly not a workaround that your lenders and of course myself can't help with. So your buyers who are just 40, 50 points shy of qualifying, really truly that's a 30 to, I would say 90 days to be conservative, but truly it's just a couple months and they'll be there. So you will not lose those buyers, which is good. We like that. No losing of buyers. So next slide. What are some tips consumers can be doing to keep their credit scores intact during this period of time? Okay, so a couple things. We are alert to the fact that creditors are offering incredible interest rates for existing clients. A lot of my clients are being coached to contact all of their credit card companies and ask for two things. Number one, be asking for credit limit increases. If you do not have any recent missed payments, most of your credit card companies will be increasing your limits. By simply increasing your limits, not necessarily your spending, but your limits, that has the ability to increase your FICO score up to 30%. So right now we want to be focusing on increasing credit limits, decreasing spending. So that's first and foremost. The other thing that I would talk to a bank about if you have the opportunity is if you have the opportunity for business, small business loans. I know there's a lot of independent contractor loans available at 0% interest. Really smart idea right now to be balance transferring debt from one card to another using your interest rates to your advantage. At this point in time, the recommendation is still to keep 3 to 5 open credit cards at all times. You never want to exceed more than 5. And right now, the other piece of information that I want to encourage you on is to not pay off your credit cards. So essentially what we would tell people a few months ago was to really truly be at about 25 to 35% utilization on each and every individual card. But I do have some clients that, especially realtors who are, getting commission checks and essentially saying, okay, I want to pay off these cards. And I'm telling them, don't. What's happening right now is a lot of your credit card companies that are having accelerated risk on their books, they're actually saying thank you for your payment and then closing your card on you altogether or decreasing your limits when they see an aggressive payment. So I would say just gradually pay them down. Don't miss any payments, of course, if you can avoid it. But right now, the better strategy is to gently pay them down month to month over the next 90 days rather than aggressively paying one completely off. So that's something. The other thing is, at the end of the day, there are going to be people, many, perhaps some of you, that are going to have to participate in a loan forbearance. And, at the end of the day, if that's the case, we're going to get through this together. We're going to help remove those things from credit, and we're going to create some workarounds to help, increase the FICO score. But if you can avoid being late on your car and your home and the things that are reporting as either installment debt or revolving lines of credit, you're going to be in such great shape as opposed to those who are late on their car payments and their mortgages. I would attempt to contact your utilities companies, your cell phone, your utilities, your car insurance. There's a lot of ways to run lean over the next 90 days, other than the things that, document and hit your credit report. Keep in mind, and this may be on another slide that I'm jumping ahead, but 1 30-day late reporting on your credit report will drop your score 60 to 80 points the minute it occurs. So it's a really unforgivable FICO score system right now. And essentially, making the decision to be late on something will immediately impact those FICO scores 60 to 80 points. A misconception that a lot of buyers have or consumers have is that if they're late on their mortgage payment, that is worse than for their Old Navy card, for example. And I just want to be clear that the FICO score makes no discernment between the two various types of credit. A 30-day late is a 30-day late, whereas your utility bills, perhaps your rent, things like car insurance, they do not report late unless you break a contract. So that's really where I would go if I could advise a client to run lean on the things that don't necessarily report the first time it's late. Okay, ready for the next one? Okay. Is this a good time for buyers to be paying off credit cards? Okay, so I just talked about that, but I also wanted to let you know that our office has a running list of banks that offer incredible secured lines of credit locally. Secured lines of credit are essentially credit cards that are prepaid. So you would walk into your bank. Right now, in particular, we're recommending BBVA Compass. Banner Bank is amazing, US Bank. And we're encouraging clients to walk in and open up secured lines of credit. That is basically you walking in and providing the bank with $500 or $1,000, for example. They will give you a Visa or MasterCard in that credit amount that you use just like a traditional revolving line of credit. The key then is to never charge more than 25% on that credit line, and that will increase 30% of your score by just showing that you have the appropriate amount of revolving lines of credit. And doing that in and of itself can offset perhaps a 30-day late that hit your credit. So it's so important. I cannot stress enough how much it's important to manage your revolving credit lines. If you think you're ever going to be late on a payment of any kind, make certain that you're keeping your 3 credit cards as a minimum open, and you're using them. And in order to do that, you can be added as an authorized user on a friend or family member's trade line or credit card. And of course, you want to make certain that the person that adds you onto that credit card is aware of the fact that they can't have any recent lates on it. It cannot be maxed out. But within 30 days of being added to that authorized user card, you will see an inflation of your FICO score. So those are some things you can be doing and focusing on right now to offset any 30-day lates. And that's what I'm trying to convey to consumers is if you have to be late, you have to be late. But there's some things you can do to minimize the point deduction that you're going to receive. Okay. What is the effect on consumers for opening new credit cards? Okay, so on that note, when you open a new line of credit, whether it's applying for a car or you're applying for a credit card, the standard deduction is anywhere from 3 to 5 points that you will lose from a hard inquiry appearing on your credit profile. You're also going to see if you are asking for loan modifications, if you're asking for loan forbearance, it's probably going to happen that your mortgage company is also going to pull your credit. That is something that the CARES Act hasn't been very clear about, whether or not that should be allowable for that point deduction to negatively impact your FICO scores. But the beautiful thing about what we do is we've mastered the art of understanding the FCRA, which is the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And the Fair Credit Reporting Act allows consumers to dispute derogatory data off of their credit profile if there's any missing information, any unverifiable information, or any inaccuracies at all. So when we're disputing through this hard time of things happening through loan modifications and hard inquiries being placed and just any sort of penalty that's going to happen during this time, we are going to be able to argue strongly for the deletion of those types of items based on the CARES Act protection that was more vague than helpful, to be quite honest. So, you know, opening up a new card may have a hard inquiry on your credit, 3 to 5 points, but it's well worth long-term to basically improve that FICO score, creating not only history, but utilization patterns. Okay, is there a difference between a mortgage late and a credit card late on a consumer's FICO score? Absolutely not. So there is no difference between a mortgage late and a credit card. If you're late, you're going to lose 60 to 80 points. Now, that being said, one of the things I wanted to mention is that if for whatever reason you are under the impression that because you have your card, for example, and you're late, that doesn't automatically mean your spouse's credit is going to be negatively impacted. And we're getting that question a lot. The only way your spouse is going to have a deduction in FICO scores is if you are sharing those credit lines. If you're on the same credit cards and there's a late, it's going to affect both of you. But many families have different individual cards. So sometimes it's best to sit down with a budget and determine, for example, if you have a client that's going to refi and the spouse's income isn't necessary for the loan to qualify, it may be that the missed payment that they select to opt for would be, for example, on the other spouse's credit. So again, I just want to be real clear that I am not advocating being late on anything at all. But at the end of the day, I also want to be a realist and know that that is happening. And so sometimes it's better to stop the bleeding in the quickest, most efficient way. And so I just want to encourage you that if that's the case, if that's your client's situation, if that's your situation, really it's important to sit down with a credit expert, even a loan specialist, to sit down and go, okay, this is my situation. These are the accounts I have, and these are my options. And then that way we can say, yep, it doesn't look good, but this is how you're going to be crossing the finish line soonest. And that's really what we want to do, is help mitigate the losses. Do I have more slides?
That was the last slide on your presentation.
Okay. I wanted to just kind of finish off my little portion of this. And of course, I'm going to open up for questions because I know there'll be quite a few. But, you know, at the end of the day, this is our second downturn in our business. So we started the business in 2005. In 2008, you all know the story there. And, there was a lot of the sky is falling conversations, and to some extent it kind of was. And I want to just encourage you that I know that we're all kind of saying we're standing shoulder to shoulder with each other and that we're all in this together, but truly this is probably one of the first times in our nation where we've all been through the same situation at the same time. So there's going to be solution-based conversations at every level, not only in the government, but of course in the credit reporting agencies, with your mortgages. So this is just about having solution-based conversations and a little less fear-based conversations. And that's really what the heart of our company is to sit down and create a roadmap and solutions. Because if you take this problem and you make it bigger than it really is, it can be super hard on your family, can be hard on your business. So I just want to encourage each of you to take every day individually and focus on the relationships that you have. I'm certainly grateful to be one of your resources where this is concerned, because of course FICO scores and credit are truly the backbone of any transaction. And of course, when someone says you can't purchase a home, it's heartbreaking, especially when 2 months ago you might have been able to do so. So we will work with you. We will work with your clients. We will dispute not only inaccuracies, which there's going to be a ton of on these credit reports. There's going to be derogatory information that's unverifiable. And if there's a silver lining, I just want to let you know that the credit bureaus, just like all of us, are understaffed and overwhelmed right now. So our disputing methods are better than they've ever been. And we're seeing things like bankruptcies, tax, you name it, coming off quicker than quick. The courts are closed. They're not able to respond within the allotted 30-day period per the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So there is hope and there's a plan. And I encourage you all to reach out for your clients and be an advocate for them, and speak hope and life into the conversation a little bit, because it's getting a little grim out there. So what questions can I answer? Oh, you're welcome. And I can't read it, so if you'll have to help me.
Okay, so from Dawn, it says, for a client on a limited budget, what are your costs to help?
Okay, so our enrollment is normally $199 to enroll. We're actually offering our discount, a COVID-19 discount. So we are offering our enrollment at $179 to enroll. That's a one-time fee. The cost of the program is normally $79 a month, and we are honoring a $59 a month fee. Again, it's month to month, so there's no contract and there's no commitment, where it's not like a gym membership where someone has to stay involved in the program any length of time. But you will see that your clients are going to get huge bumps in FICO score within the first 30, 60 days. So it's not uncommon for someone to invest a couple $100 and then finish the program. Now, we do have clients that are in much longer. We have people that are in up to 6 months at a time, but that would be someone fresh out of a bankruptcy, a divorce, foreclosure, you name it. So just to be real clear, every single client has to have a free consultation. We need to make certain that we can be a solution for them. We may be, after we go through that credit report, we may find out that, we're probably step 3 for someone. They may need to establish positive credit right now. They may need to rework their budget, which we'll certainly talk to them about during that consultation. But really, we want to be the plastic surgery after the hardship. And so what I want to make certain is that clients at least have a 30 to 45 minute complimentary roadmap laid out for them so that they have a solution and they know how to, stop the bleeding, essentially.
Thank you, Tiffany. I don't see any more questions on the chat. Oh, it looks like there's one more from Aaron Free. Do you recommend someone with no credit opening multiple secured lines of credit?
Absolutely. So I mentioned earlier, I think secured lines of credit are probably right now one of the best things to be doing. Secured lines of credit are amazing. Some of the best, BBVA Compass, US Bank, some of those are some really good ones. Keep in mind when you open up those secured lines of credit, keep those balances down, continue to use them. Do not pay them off in full every month. It does not build a FICO score to pay them off every month. So you want to just, in full, I should say, make your on-time payments, make your minimum payments if you can. But then a good secured line will actually, after about 90 days, extend a traditional line of credit to you and then refund back the unused portion of your secured credit lines. So that's really, truly one of my favorite options.
All right, another question from Edith. Can you discuss more about BKs and the courts not able to verify since they're closed?
Absolutely. So when you're disputing a bankruptcy, just like every other type of item on your credit report, there is no item that isn't treated the exact same way by the credit bureaus. So when we dispute a bankruptcy, we're disputing the verifiability and accuracy of the content of how they're reporting it. When we dispute, the credit bureaus only have legally 30 business days to do their due diligence, to reach out to the original creditor, and in this case, the court, provide documentation and verify with 100% accuracy that all the information that's being reported is accurate and true. So clearly, with the courts being closed in many cases and the credit bureaus overwhelmed and understaffed, we're seeing an increase just like of deletions, just like we did back when the Equifax data breach occurred 2 years ago. Same thing. So keep in mind, if they're not responsive in that 30-day time period, it has to be deleted. So it's very similar to the concept of a traffic violation, for example. So if you have a traffic violation and you go to traffic court, if your police officer doesn't show up, then it's dismissed or discharged. Same thing goes for your credit. The exact same situation. We just use the credit laws to the consumer's advantage. And that doesn't discriminate between a bankruptcy or a 30-day late on a credit card. Hopefully that answers your question.
Edith says thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. By the way, we really don't ever want to dispute or challenge a bankruptcy until it's been a year from discharge date. Disputing it prior to that, typically there's very little chance of getting it removed, but the magic number is 1 year after discharge. Also, keep in mind the FICO score made some adaptations this last year with the recency factor, and that's something I didn't touch on. Ordinarily, when you have a 30-day late, obviously it stays on your credit for 7 full years, and the first 4 years used to be the most impactful. Now they're suggesting that the recency factor is 2 years. So what that means to a consumer is if you've always had good credit, but you have a life event that transpires, like a business partner dissolution, or you have a divorce that you go through, they basically penalize you the most severely for 2 years, but they're giving grace, a little more grace at least, after year 2. So that's helpful. So keep in mind, worst case scenario, if all of us go through this and just get a ton of derogatory items on our credit, the FICO score did recently make adjustments to where that penalty would only be really strong for 2 years rather than 4, which is good.
All right, another question. This one's from Rosalind.
Okay.
What is credit impact to defer car payments on a lease?
So we really haven't seen that yet. So that's something that we'll have to get some hard evidence on. But I just want to remind you that the CARES Act is supposed to protect consumers from any sort of derogatory 30-day late hitting the credit. But to Tracy Guermon's point earlier before the meeting started, sometimes just not having a payment at all reporting in and of itself will drop the score. Because if you've had 10 months of of paying your monthly payment of your car payment, and then you suddenly don't have a payment history for 90 days, even though there may not be a missed payment reporting, the lack of payment reporting could in fact create a hardship on the FICO score. If that happens, you need to contact me, because that's something that we need to be disputing and utilizing the CARES Act. And again, the CARES Act is very vague, which I love, because when we have any sort of areas of gray, then by default for the FCRA, it has to be deleted.
All right, this one's from Daniel. Do you suggest to carry a balance on cards to show usage? Does it make any difference if the rollover balance is 1 cent or $100? Thank you for all the info.
Oh, you're welcome. So I'm going to give COVID-19 specific answers that I would not normally give a consumer. Absolutely, I'd rather see a consumer carrying a balance. 25% is the sweet spot. I would say 10, 15, 20%, you'd be great. I really don't want to see consumers paying off to a cent, for example, especially if they have any credit challenges or if their scores are lower. Because like I mentioned earlier, that type of client is going to be the client that if they pay off their credit card, they could very likely be someone that the credit card company then closes the account, says, thank you for your payment, we've closed your account, which is unfair, but we saw that a lot in 2009, 2010, and all the way to 2012. So right now, just to be safe, make your on-time payments. pay them down. You don't get more FICO score points by paying completely off versus a 10% utilization. So nothing drastic right now. Just make your on-time payments. And then, you know, let's not do anything drastic to be on the radar is my best advice.
From Betty, I do not carry a balance due to interest. Will that hurt my credit on my credit card?
So the answer to that question actually starts with what your FICO scores are. If you have a 720 FICO or higher and you carry no balances, then you're fine. It is the credit challenged client, which many of us are working with credit challenged clients to get them qualified to purchase homes. The advice changes for them. So Betty, since you're 800 and up, you're fine. It's for people that have the lower FICO ranges that actually don't benefit at all by keeping their balances or their credit cards paid to zero. We need to show a utilization pattern, and it's super important for consumers to be using their credit cards, showing on-time payment. Otherwise, they call it credit avoidance, and credit avoidance actually damages the FICO scores for people in the credit challenge ranges.
It looks like that was the last question.
Okay.
Any last words?
So let me just leave with on this note, my contact information. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for being a part of this. So my contact information is Dedicated Credit Repair. We're in Murrieta, and up until 2 weeks ago, I've always prided myself on having an office, which we still do, but not today. So you can reach out to us on our website, which is dcrusa.com, as for Dedicated Credit Repair, dcrusa.com. And then our office number is 951-246-7754.
Tiffany, 2 last minute questions came in. Do you want to go over them?
Yeah, please.
Okay. What happens if you cannot pay the full amount? Does the amount matter?
If you can't pay the full amount of what? Of your credit card?
They did not state.
Well, let me tell you something that was on the news this morning, and it kind of made my heart skip a little bit, because literally I was drinking my coffee, and the Channel 5 news told people it's better to send a payment of, let's say your payment's $100, and they said, well, it's better to send a payment of 20 than nothing. And although in theory that should be the case, unfortunately, if you make a $20 payment, you're late on your credit card. And then what's going to happen is they're going to say, not only did she not pay, but now she's going to have rolling lates on the fees that happened because you didn't pay the full amount. So unless you can get them to put it in writing, which, by the way, now's the time to ask. There may be forgiveness in that, and each creditor is going to be different. But in ordinary times, of course, just making a partial payment absolutely does not help build your scores or keep you from getting a derogatory remark. In today's world, though, with this current situation, I would ask them, and of course, get everything in writing. Take fluid notes, find out who you talk to, write it down, make sure you have ample amounts of proof and documentation, because that's going to be super important during these times. I also want to talk about, sorry, did we lose a bunch of people? Because I forgot to talk about identity theft. I think it's important. We are being asked a ton of things about identity theft. Right now is not the time to be doing a ton of, I know this is hard because we're not able to go to stores and things like that. If you have a card that you can use specific to your online purchasing, please make certain that you're using the same card every time, if possible, and then you can pay one with the other. We're seeing a huge influx in identity theft happening with credit cards being used a little more than normal online. So if it is possible to use the same method of payment, that's really what's recommended.
There was a question here from Sandy. Let's see if I could find it. Do you see credit card companies lowering interest rates if requested?
Yes, absolutely. And I would, and if, you know what, we have nothing but time on our hands right now. So I'm a huge advocate. If you don't like what you hear, call back, because I'm telling you, I swear I had an issue with something, I won't name names. I almost did. Oops. And I was like, this is just crazy. So even though I had to get back on the phone, and it was a total of 4 hours, I was on listening to the same hold music the entire time. It was obnoxious, but I did get the answer I wanted by calling back. So definitely. And also, guys, your insurance companies are working with you. Most of us aren't driving. And if we are, we're driving a lot less. So I know that there are ways to really cut corners right now. And again, I'm not advocating for not having insurance. I'm not advocating for being late. I just want to be a realist and offer some solutions to you guys and your clients. If that is something you have to do, I want to help you mitigate that.
A lot of great comments from Rosalind. She met you at San Jacinto College, and you share about real estate to the real estate students. Great information. You're amazing.
Thank you. It's an honor to do it. Please consider us, you guys. We have 5 full-time people in our office that all want to remain employed. So we rely heavily on our real estate family and community to keep us operational. So so thank you. Thank you for that.
A question from Sandy. If a car finance company allows 3 months defer payments, it will affect the credit score by just not paying?
And yes, so that's what we want to make certain that doesn't happen. So right now, the best thing to do would be to obtain credit monitoring. LifeLock is awesome. Privacy Guard. You really can't go wrong as long as you have something in place, because if you are one of those people that went into an agreement with one of your creditors and they have said this is not going to affect your credit, you have to be monitoring. The example that I used earlier was a close friend of mine contacted her mortgage company to just inquire about what the loan forbearance would look like on her mortgage. She didn't agree to it. She just wanted the information. And whoever she spoke to put the comment on her credit file that it was forbearance. That appeared within 2 weeks on her LifeLock account. She called me and said she lost 38 points by the words appearing on her credit report, and she hadn't even agreed to the forbearance. So again, I can't stress enough that what you're being told in theory is supposed to happen doesn't always occur. So right now, more than ever, be monitoring your credit. I believe LifeLock is like $9 a month. I know there's some others out there too. But certainly now is the time to be monitoring, especially if you're the person that's going to be participating in any of these different programs for the next 90 days.
It looks like that's the last one.
Okay. Take care, you guys. I so appreciate you, and I'm here for you if you need anything.
Thank you, Tiffany, for sharing. We will be uploading this either to our YouTube or Facebook. We appreciate you partnering with us to bring valuable information to our members. And
it's an honor.
We'll continue to see you on Facebook in virtual world.
Absolutely. Follow Dedicated Credit Repair's Facebook page. I'm posting tips and resources almost hourly right now. So Dedicated Credit Repairs on Facebook. Feel free to like us. Thanks, you guys.
And Instagram.
And Instagram.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.